Did you know that this is an American bomb warehouse in the middle of the English countryside, just 20 miles away from an airbase that Donald Trump is using to attack Iran?
We're going to hit them extremely hard over the next 2 to 3 weeks. We're going to bring them back to the Stone Ages.
And is this evidence that Britain is much more deeply involved with this illegal war than Keir Starmer has told the public?
This is not our war, and we're not going to get dragged into it.
I've come to what's supposed to be a Royal Air Force base near Swindon to investigate what's going on behind the wire.
American security police who presumably will shoot you if you try and get into one of the bunkers.
Joining me to investigate is a veteran anti-war activist, Peter Burt. We're about 50 to 100 metres now from the fence, from this massive American bomb stockpile in the English countryside. Peter, you've been monitoring this base behind us for weeks now. What have you seen going on and why do you think it's so important?
So RAF Welford is linked very closely to the Fairford Air Base, where Donald Trump's bombers are currently flying from to mount raids on Iran. And the interesting thing about this place, Welford, is it's where many of the bombs used in these raids come from. It's said by the United States Air Force to be the second biggest bomb store in the whole of Europe.
You've been taking some videos while you've been here. What have you seen?
What we've seen is trucks going in and out, and we've seen exactly the same trucks at the other end in Fairford. We've also seen that these trucks have orange hazard warning signs on the side to show that they're carrying explosive materials.
And although this is called RAF Welford, it's actually operated by the American military. It would cost them almost $1 billion to replace the infrastructure they have here, according to a Pentagon document that Declassified found. And the site is as large as about 500 football pitches. It's absolutely massive. The American military have released footage from inside Welford showing these bombs being taken out of shipping containers by forklift trucks and put onto lorries, and then we've seen the same bombs being unloaded at Fairford. These are 2,000-pound bombs. How do you feel having an American-operated military base here in the English countryside?
Well, it shines a light on the so-called special relationship, doesn't it? This is a place that probably not many people know about. You know, it's tucked away at the top of a hill. If you don't live in one of the villages nearby, then you'd never know about it at all. Yet, you know, it's a very important part in the United States' military power in Europe. It's one of the kind of key hubs for ordnance that is used by the United States Air Force and, you know, other military units within the United States forces for any of their operations in this part of the world.
So, Peter, we've now walked right up to the fence of this base. Have you ever been in any further beyond this point?
Strangely enough, I have, because back in 2003, during the Iraq War, there were lots of anti-war campaigns at this base and lots of non-violent direct action as well, which involved people climbing over the fence and roaming around inside and then being ejected by the police. So yes, I was able to climb over the fence and get in. At that time, security was much less than it is now.
And what kind of weapons did you see being stored inside the base?
Again, you probably wouldn't see it now, but at that time, there were huge pallets of 2,000-pound bombs just sort of laid out in big long rows behind the revetments that you can see behind us.
To improve security at the base, the US military began storing the bombs in shipping containers inside the grass banks, as these satellite images show. The containers full of bombs are transported each year across the Atlantic on a ship carrying $145 million worth of ammunition to keep Welford ready for war. However, drone footage we took this week of the base showed there were hardly any containers left inside the banks. So have these bombs already been dropped on Iran? Activists monitoring the base say there have been lorry convoys from here to Fairford up to 3 times a day during the last month. This could mean the stockpile is now running low. Over at RAF Fairford, we saw American troops loading more sophisticated cruise missiles onto planes bound for Iran. Whereas 2 weeks earlier, we'd watched them load the cheaper JDAM bombs from Welford. Experts believe the cruise missiles are being delivered to Fairford not by road, but by C-130 cargo planes, which have been seen landing frequently at the base, flying in from Germany and Italy, where the US military has stockpiles of cruise missiles. These weapons, which can cost more than $1 million each, can be fired from outside Iran's airspace, suggesting the US still doesn't have air superiority over the entire country.
And are you worried that bombs from here could end up being used to kill civilians in Iran?
Very much so. We know very little about what the flights from Fairford are doing. We have no indication at all of what their targets are or what their destinations are. The only information we know is from plane spotters. We haven't heard anything officially from the United States government or the British government. Keir Starmer has said that these flights will be engaged in defensive operations, but what does that really mean? Is an attack on a Iranian missile factory, is that really defensive or is it offensive? Something else to bear in mind as well is if we are helping the Americans defend themselves and defend assets in that part of the world, that frees up more American aircraft for use in their own offensive raids. So there's no getting away from this. This is not a defensive stance that the government is taking.
The party that is defending is Iran. Iran was not starting this war. We were talking, negotiating with the Americans when they coordinatedly, started this aggression against us. So we are in defensive posture, and whoever siding with the aggressor is in the offensive side.
Donald Trump, of course, has made statements about taking out Iran's entire electrical infrastructure, which would be a war crime.
We are going to hit each and every one of their electric generating plants very hard.
But Keir Starmer has drawn up this framework about defensive strikes. So you're not convinced by that legal framework that he's put in place?
We have nothing to back the legal framework except a one-sentence statement from the government that they assert that it will be lawful and they assert that the strikes will be defensive. But there's nothing to show at all what kind of safeguarding there is to make sure those strikes are defensive. We don't know whether the British forces will have any kind of veto over what the Americans are doing. Highly unlikely that they would. So we don't know whether these aircraft are involved in any kind of civilian attacks at all. As you say, Donald Trump has said that he's going to take out the whole of Iran's energy infrastructure. Let's think back a couple of months to the Ukraine war and the quite rightful outcry that there was when Russia started attacking civilian energy targets. Donald Trump is planning on taking out the whole of Iran's energy infrastructure. Just imagine the outcry there would be if Putin threatened to do that in Ukraine.
And there are now 23 of these heavy bombers at RAF Fairford, which is about half an hour drive from here, taking off almost every day to go and bomb Iran. Their flight paths are quite interesting. Many of them seem to go over the southwest of England, over Devon and Cornwall. Why are they doing that?
We know that Spain has said that American aircraft are not allowed to overfly its territory.
This war in Iran is a big mistake for the world and therefore for the US.
So that could mean that the aircraft are going way out into the Bay of Biscay and then through the Straits of Gibraltar and through the Mediterranean on their flight paths. We also know that some of them have been flying over France. So it's possible that they've chosen a refueling site somewhere, in between that kind of area where they could hook up with tankers to provide them with the fuel they need to continue their journey.
And we've seen those American Air Force refueling planes crash over Iraq. The Pentagon say it was a mid-air collision. Iraqi armed groups say that they shot one down. Is there any cause for people to be concerned about these aircraft doing refueling loops over the southwest of England?
What we did see back in 2003 during the Iraq War was one flight from Fairford at least had to abandon its mission and then fly back into the Bristol Channel and jettison bombs and fuel into the Bristol Channel. So that could conceivably happen again. And there have been cases, over the past couple of weeks where B-52 flights have been aborted and the flights have gone back, in an emergency situation to Fairford.
Last year, some Palestine Action members broke into RAF Norton, not far from here,
and sprayed paint on a Royal Air Force plane. After they did that, the group Palestine Action was banned as a terrorist organisation, and the people that were arrested allegedly for doing that are still in jail awaiting trial. Is that kind of response the norm, or what happened back in 2003 when activists broke into bases like this and RAF Fairford?
Back in 2003, we did have more liberties than we do now. But even in those days, during the Iraq War, there was very much a strong policing clampdown. We saw this whole area sort of swarming with police patrols, police on mounted horses, and anybody who came into the area who looked like a peace protester. And even a lot of farm workers were repeatedly stopped and searched by the police. And if they found on you a banner or anything that they thought was related to protest, they would warn you off the land and you weren't allowed to come back for 3 months. And in the aftermath of that, there was a big inquiry by the US military aimed at increasing security at this base. They set up something called a Tiger Team, and they introduced new military bylaws and other legislation to stop people climbing in.
Do you think that there could be a public backlash to the Americans having bases like this in England?
Well, I hope so, because what we're seeing is, without question, a war crime by the American government. And far from condemning it and preventing it from happening, the UK government is actively aiding and abetting through these bases and through its involvement and allowing the US to use them for attacks on Iran. So I very much hope that does happen.
If you like watching this video, don't forget to share and subscribe to our channel. If you want to help us do investigative journalism like this, please consider making a donation through the link below. Thanks for watching.